a big part of the book that Fred wrote on low-wage capitalism analyzes exactly what you talked about and points out that in many ways we're in a new epoch of capitalism. And because as Fred said, capitalism built itself domestically off of slavery, off of the genocide of the Native Americans, but the other way that capitalism in the U.S. built itself into a so-called superpower was by robbing the resources of the third world all over the world, and robbing those resources, and it allowed them to maintain a certain stability in this country by basically super exploiting the rest of the world. They would pay off a sector of workers, at least white workers in this country, and buy peace. The change in this epoch of imperialism is while formerly imperialism was based on robbing the resources, with the advent of technology, as you described it, now what they export is capital itself. They can export the jobs. And they can integrate. So, for example, in an auto, we have just-in-time production. They can do that internationally now. They can integrate production all over the world through computers. And it's a big change. I mean, lawyers now have briefs typed up in India. X-rays are read just through technology. And it's a new era. And what it says, on the one hand, that they don't need the workers here at all anymore. That the incentive they had to buy peace in this country by paying workers a little more is gone, because now they can just pit worker against worker on an international scale. And unfortunately, the answer that's put forth to it by a lot of the capitalists, and even by a lot of the union leaders even, is, well, we got to buy American. We got to buy. But the fact is, there is no American corporation. We're a multinational, and there is no American worker. We're all workers. And that's why we need solidarity.
Workers of the world need to unite.
We need to have solidarity. And when there's a strike in Mexico, we got to support that strike, because it's a strike against the same bosses that we're fighting here. And that's a really important aspect of this book. And Fred's book is really an advance on theory and really exposing that. It's a big aspect of it, and it shows why there's a change. Why the idea that the capitalists, right now, the kind of divisions they could keep in the working class to kind of buy us off and quiet it down in this country, and by super exploiting the rest of the world, those days are gone. Because they don't care whether you're a worker in the U.S. or in India. They can move that job, and they're going to move it wherever they can make the quickest profit. And that's why we need international solidarity.
That's right.
I wanted to make one other point, if I may. One of the things we have to think about is, why is it, as bad as things are, that now they're talking about the Republicans, people winning Congress and things are moving to the right. At least it appears that way. And I think to do that, we have to analyze what the limitations have been in the program of the Democrats, including the Obama administration. There was an excellent article in the New York Times today by a commentator. You got to dig, when they write in the New York Times, these are big, these are the commentators for the capitalist class, but he's the most liberal one, Bob Herbert. And he made a good point, that the Democratic program is based on the same kind of trickle-down economics that the Republican program is. And we see that. I deal a lot in the mortgage area. So they come up with modification programs that give the money to the banks. Every program they make is to give the money to the banks. They came up with $250 million to bring into Michigan, and we raised to them. That money should go to take those houses that are being put on the market for nothing, buy them and put them in the hands of the people, and let people have them. People who are homeless now, as well as the people who are being evicted. Let's use it. And you know what the answer was? And this is from both Granholm and from the Obama administration. No, the money has to go to the banks. And that's why the Republicans are getting strong, because people figure, well, if you're going to have trickle-down economics and you think that's the answer, you might as well go to the people who are really into it, which are the Republicans. It's because the Democrats have adopted the Republican program.
Thank you.
The essence of what we're raising is that what we need to be raising is that we, the workers, have our rights. And our rights are independent of the capitalist rights. Our rights are because of a job, housing. These are fundamental rights. and it's the capitalists who are taking those rights away from us, and will continue to take them away, and we're only going to get them when we fight back.
Right.
And that's why we need to have, and that's what, and what holds the struggle back in this country is not enough people approach it from that ideological point of view.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times, I know people have looked at what's happening in Greece, where they have this big debt crisis. It's the same as the debt crisis in Detroit. They renegotiate the loans, the debts are greater, the government's bankrupt. But what do the workers? And so they tell the workers, you got to sacrifice to pay off the banks. What do the workers do in Greece? They go on a general strike against it. Why are they in a general? In Detroit, what do? They don't know what to do. Now we need another politician who's going to do the same damn thing. What's the difference between Greece and in this country? Is that the unions in Greece are led by communists and socialists who understand that we got to fight the system and challenge the system. In France, they're talking about raising the retirement age from 65 to 67. In this country, it's going up to 70. Well, what's the response? 2 million workers went on a general strike this week against that. Why did they do it in France? Because the unions are led by communists and socialists, people who understand that it's a system that's the problem. And I'm afraid that the weakness of the struggle in this country is there aren't enough communists and socialists in the movement. And that's why these meetings are important. We have to build a revolutionary organization that can challenge the bosses on a day-to-day basis. You ain't going to win reforms unless you fight the system. And we do, and that's why we need people to come into our organization, to be revolutionaries, and don't be afraid of it. And that's why we got to study the ideology, to arm people so we can fight. And we fight on a day-to-day basis. One last point on the housing issue. You know, there is a lot of public housing now. The government has taken over, buys off all the mortgages now. They own it. The evictions and all the homes that are being emptied by the government through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Our program is that government has no right to throw people out. That those are our homes. We have a right to keep the people who've been thrown out and to put the people who've been losing those homes back into them. And that's our program. And we're with you, brother. We're with you. And we said let's fight for it in the 30.
What I want, mine is a comment that leads to a question, and that's Jerry more or less covered the first part of it anyway. That our political system seems to be swinging to the right now. The Republicans are licking their chops. They're going to be back in office and do all these things, which is going to exacerbate all these things that Fred's been talking about here. So what's the next step after that? I mean, is our organization going to work, or is the government going to be going
Stay the course. Stay the course.
I mean, is the government with their jackboots going to be pushing us down in between, or what?
We're going to stay the course, regardless.
Fred, want to comment on that? Fred?
Did you hear the comment? Did you hear? Okay.
What happens if the Republicans
Well, just, I don't want to keep saying the same thing in the same way, but sometimes the answer is the same. Well, first of all, on the Republicans, let's assume they get the majority and all that stuff, It's all in the realm of bourgeois politics, and it will go in a straight line to the right until the workers wake up. That's about it. Until the workers get into motion, they'll just move this way. They have never had this. The last 3 generations of capitalist politicians in this country have never had to confront the proletariat. The workers. They have never had to really struggle